Celtic State of Mind. My name is Laura Bradburn, and that means only one thing. It's time for the Friday show, the end of another week. I look back at what has been, I look ahead to what is to come this weekend. So I'm joined, as always, by Tony, Haggerty and Jim Orr. Jim, how you doing?
Good, Laura. Thanks for
that. Tony, I'm going to come to you first. A seismic week in Scottish football for reasons other than Celtic, although some would say it's deeply connected to Celtic, as it has been for time immemorial, which is the unfortunate and untimely early passing of Walter Smith. There's been a lot of coverage about it over the week. Obviously, being the Friday show, we just wanted to share our thoughts on the matter and just talk a little bit about the guy who, regardless of this being a Celtic podcast, can't really be ignored for his impact in Scottish football. You've had a few dealings with him over the years. How did you find him? What were your thoughts on Walter Smith?
First and foremost, kind of commemorating the sadness, and you commiserate with the Rangers family that they've lost somebody, a titan, basically. I think someone called him of Scottish football, and he was. And he loved Rangers, but he was a cracking guy, a wonderful man. He was a father, a husband, and a grandfather, first and foremost. You know, but I didn't have many dealings with him, but the dealings I had were pretty good, pretty solid. And I remember going to Auchenhowie one day, and I presented him with a Celtic shop plastic bag, and I said the words, "Work on the premise that appearances are deceptive," and in the bag was a Rangers shirt, and I asked him if he'd sign it, because my girlfriend at the time was now my wife. It was her 40th, and we were going to a party for her in her cousin's house, and her cousin was a big Rangers man, and I'd never met him, and I wanted to maybe create a good impression so I wouldn't get flung out of the house. And Walter said, "Are you going to present this in the Celtic bag?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, that's fantastic." And he grabbed it and he signed it, and he's like, "Pleasure." And he's like, "Here, wait a minute." And he runs down the corridor and he's like, "Here, you, yeah." And sure enough, Super Ali comes back. He's like, "Don't ask, sign." And he walk into the room, and I'm quite friendly with Super Ali, and he gave me a big hug, and Walter was like, "Oh, do you know each other?" "Yeah, he's got Bride connection, yada yada." And he's like, "Sign that." He's like, "You give that to your friend," he said, "and tell him, outgoing Rangers manager, incoming new Rangers manager." You know, he didn't have to do it, and two, he said, "But please tell me that you're going to give him the Celtic bag." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, that stays. So he saw the funny side of that, and he was tremendous. He was really, really chuffed. And also, he was a guest of honour at the Football Writers in 2008. I think Rangers were about to head to the UEFA Cup final, and he got up to speak, and you know, everybody said that in that week everybody was talking about the enormity of that game for Rangers, and he brushed it to one side and said, you know, what happens, happens. And he spoke most eloquently and passionately about his friend, and that was Tommy Burns, and all the football writers that were there. It was, it was one of them glad to be there moments, because he got very choked and emotional, and he loved Tommy Burns. He loved him as a person, and he loved what he stood for, and he loved the rivalry as well. And I guess I could say that the highest compliment I could give Walter is that he, like Walter is seen as the Celtic equivalent to Tommy Burns in the Rangers mode in my eyes. And I never ever got the Walter stare, thankfully, because I was never stupid around him. I never asked him a stupid question, even though I was tempted to. But
you never asked him if Brian Laudrup was good enough for Europe, did you?
I never asked him that, no. But remember they cocked up the League Cup semi-final draw at the Houses of Parliament?
Yes, yeah.
Four teams, right? And so we go to see Walter after that, and we sit down and we say, "What's your thoughts?" And Walter, very deadpan, says, "Yeah, well, you've got to play whoever. Doesn't matter who you play in the semi-final. It's always a tough test. You know, whether it's Hearts, Aberdeen or Dundee United, it wouldn't have mattered. You've got to beat them all if you're going to win the cup." And we were like, "Okay." And he went, "Switch them off." He switched the tapes off, and he's like, "How can you cock up a 14 draw?" What it does, it's called Alex Ferguson. And he goes on this comedic rant, and honestly, all of us were in stitches. And then just says, "Right, right, back to business, and he was a cracking guy. He was wonderful, and I'll share this with you. I wasn't going to, but as I said, I'm really friendly with McCoist, and he was on Talk Sport, and he spoke brilliantly about him. And I sent him this. I don't even know if he was on the programme at the time, but I sent him it, and I said, look, Scottish football lost a great man today. I'm thinking of his wife Ethel and his family big time. I said, I'm also thinking of you and how close you were to Walter Ali. May he rest in peace. He was a wonderful man who was sadly missed for all who were fortunate and blessed to ever be in his company. I offer my most heartfelt condolences to yourself and all the other members of the Rangers family at this time. He will be reunited with his old friend Tommy Burns, and that to me is a most wonderful thought, as they were both cut from the same cloth. A true gentleman in the true sense of the word. Much love, much respect always. And I always end it with, they never die who live in the hearts they leave behind. I said, take care and speak soon. And I sent it away, and 60 seconds later I got, thanks Tony, he was the best, and by some considerable distance. You're so right. He will be with Tommy, and that, my friend, gives me great comfort. I think that says it all.
Well, it wouldn't be Friday if Tony didn't have his greeting, and he's just about managed it anyway.
6 minutes 22. I made it. Get your
6 minutes
out.
22.
Get your
I'm sure some folk in the chat are greeting for different reasons, but Jim, your thoughts on Walter Smith?
You can never really top what Mr. Haggerty always says. Obviously, Tony knew him. I didn't know him, never met him, but I think I always like to look at it in terms of how it affects Celtic, and I always like the kind of sliding doors moments in football. You go back to, if Jock Stein doesn't arrive, Celtic not the Celtic they are just now. And I think Souness said that Walter Smith was his best signing. I think Walter Smith doesn't go to Ibrox, they don't win 9 in a row, because he was the main guy there. I think Souness was the front. He was a guy that managed to attract the big name players. I think if he'd appointed Walter Smith as manager, they'd still be buying players in Scotland. But Souness was the guy at the front. He gets Butcher, he gets Woods, he gets Roberts, and all these kind of guys. And then when Smith takes over, they just continue that success. And obviously they had a lot more money than we had at the time, but you can't argue with the success that they had. I'd imagine he's going down as their best ever manager. So, it's always very sad when someone passes away, and 73 is very young, I think. So, our condolences go out to his family,
Yeah, absolutely. Echo that. Thanks everybody for commenting on wherever you're watching us from. We're across 8 platforms. Larkar on YouTube says it was a wonderful tribute from Tony. 4 Trebles is saying Tony's a poet. Good words. It's a strange one for me from a younger fan's point of view, because as many will tell you, Walter Smith was almost single-handedly responsible for me believing that Celtic didn't win trophies for the first 10 years of my life. The one thing I would say, and I would encourage anybody to watch it, is he was always a very reasonable guy. Whenever I saw him talking, he always put into perspective the fact that at the end of the day, we're talking about a football rivalry between 2 clubs, and that is all it was. There was a good interview, I think it was after a game in 1997. Sky Sports had an interview with him and Tommy Burns standing next to each other. Now, when do you get that after an Old Firm match? But the interviewer asked, whose round is it for the drinks? And Walter says, well, Tommy got the last round, so I think it's my turn this time. And that just epitomised, the friendship they had, the attitude they had to the whole circus that is the Old Firm rivalry. And I think something like this week just puts into perspective the fact that, at the end of the day, Tony, you said when I was talking to you on the phone about it earlier in the week, at the end of the day, a man has died, a family have lost a grandfather, a father, a husband, and there's no real words to say that can replace that. So again, our thoughts go out to his family, his friends, and just leave you with one last story that I heard Jonathan Burns, Tommy's son, say. He was, anybody who remembers when Walter Smith was in charge at Scotland, he brought in Ali McCoist and Tommy Burns as his 2 assistant managers. And then thereafter, Walter and Ali left Scotland to go back to Rangers for their second spell. And as a joke, the three of them cooked up. Tommy Burns arrived back at Celtic Park with 2 empty suitcases and told everybody he'd had an offer he couldn't refuse. He was going to join Walter and Ali at Rangers. And obviously the ribbon he took for that was absolutely second to none. Although I believe he did have a go at them when they went and left him at the Scotland setup and says, "Where's my offer? What are you doing?" You know, so refreshing and heartwarming to hear stories like that. But we'll move on to Celtic matters now, and again, just reiterate our thoughts are with Walter Smith's family at what must be an incredibly sad time. Moving on to recent events, Jim, I'll come to you first. We're on a bit of a winning streak at the moment. Most recently, obviously, being the 3-1 victory against Hibs away at Easter Road on Wednesday night. I believe it's something silly, like the first time in 7 years since we won in the league at Easter Road. What did you make of the performance, if, of course, you were able to watch any of it, given that it wasn't on any of our local television services?
Of course I watched it. Hibs pay-per-view. Of course you watched it. It's been an interesting week. I think 2 very different games for me. 2 great victories, and happy to be where we are and could go top of the league tomorrow, which is it's all good stuff. But I kind of tend to look for the positives if we've a bad result, and kind of vice versa. And I thought, so the game last week, the St Johnstone game, and lots of people were talking with words like composed and patient and in control and secure and all that sort of stuff. I was dead frustrated last week watching the game. So I thought Aberdeen and Motherwell weren't very good. I thought St Johnstone were very good. Horrible to watch. They let us have the ball, and we didn't do very much with it in that first half. We didn't test the goalkeeper. We didn't make many chances. And can you hear me okay? I've got some strange echo coming back there.
Yeah, I heard that myself, but no, I can still hear you.
Strange echo. The 2 goals we got were mistakes with the St Johnstone players. The guy miskicks the ball in the first half, and a fantastic pass by Tony Ralston on the half volley. Good finish by the big man. I mean, it's 1-0 late in the game. You're always a wee bit wary that something might happen. So we really need to kill teams off. And I don't know whether that's the new game plan for Ange. They just keep the ball, wear them out. Don't do much in the first half, and then save it for the last half hour, and then we kind of go to town in the last half hour. So it was a good victory. We talked last Friday about the hope that Giakoumakis and Kyogo would both play. And then when I heard the team, you thought, great. And then we saw Kyogo's on the wing, you thought, not great. You've made the same mistake again. And go on, no day that, basically. Because I'm in the Jock Stein stand, so I'm behind the goals, and I'm level with the kind of 18-yard box. So Kyogo's in my direct line of vision. And he did nothing the whole first half. He hugged the touchline. He got a couple of passes and he played them inside. So, as I've said with Abada, that's a man down playing Kyogo wide on that right-hand side. And I read something about, that, but he's good at tracking back. He's better than Turnbull and Rogic. That's quite a low bar to have in terms of being better than 2 of them. And you don't pay £4.5 million for a guy who scores goals for fun to have him been good at tracking back. Otherwise, you play Tony Ralston up front right-hand side. So I wish he would stop doing that, because it's just such a waste of a talent. And I think somebody pointed out to me last week in the comment section that Kyogo played in the left in Japan. It's not working. Everyone can see it's not working in here. And then what a contrast then on Wednesday, where you played 2 out-and-out wingers who take people on, who play with their heads up. Hibs couldn't cope with that.
Yeah.
And that's playing 2 wingers who are involved in the game, not one winger that's involved in the game and one winger spectating. In that first half, I thought that was one of the best half hour played under Ange. Albeit 2 of the 3 goals are set pieces that come from defenders. We missed chances. Turnbull should have scored, Kyogo should have scored. And it's dead sloppy. Because I've said before in the podcast, I think round about the 90-point mark we'll win this league. So goal difference, I think, could well come into it this season. And I think we should have been 4 or 5 ahead in that first half hour. We're not. And then we lose a really, really sloppy goal. It's off the guy's shoulders. Trundle's in at the post. No one's on the post. So we won the game, and that's great. And I'm not trying to be all Victor Meldrew about it. But as I said, I think when you win games, you look at areas where could we have done better in certain areas. And that first half hour was fantastic. I don't think we could have kept that tempo up. And obviously with big Logic getting off, maybe things. But we should have went forward. We should have scored more goals than we did. And Joe Hart was great. I mean, Joe Hart has to make 2 great saves. In a game that, like the St Johnstone game, we had a ridiculous amount of the ball, but not a lot of shots. We didn't test the keeper that much. So I think that's an area that we have to kind of sort out, hopefully starting tomorrow, because we should be putting teams to the sword earlier than we are. It should have been 4 or 5-0 after 30 minutes, and that was the game finished. Whereas they scored, and then you're thinking, if they get a second goal, what could happen here? So it's great that they won the 2 games. It's great that they're on the winning run. It's great that we go top tomorrow, but there's some wee bits and pieces that we have to sort out. And please, Ange, mate, don't play Kyogo wide. And I think from what's been said before that he's not going to change that 4-3-3, which is a shame, because I think we've all said that it'd be good to see Giakoumakis and Kyogo up front. And I think a game like tomorrow, Livingston at home, why wouldn't you maybe switch it to 4-4-2 or 4-1-3-2 just to see what they're both like, just to try it for once and see what it's like. And if it falls in the backside, don't do it again. But if you get out there and it works really, really well, then maybe that's the template for moving forward. But what do I know? But good to be where we are. We're on a good winning run, and long may it continue.
I think you raise a good point in terms of, if you're not going to try it tomorrow at home against Livingston, when are you going to try it? I would love to see it, to be honest. And I totally agree with the fact that I don't think Furuhashi has any impact, and certainly nowhere near the impact that he has through the middle when he's playing out in the left. Tony, the first half an hour against Hibs was really encouraging. We absolutely bombarded them. They really couldn't cope with what we were doing, and it did put me in mind of that video at the start of the season of we keep going until the final whistle and we don't stop. Do you agree with Jim's summation that we are wasteful in front of goal, or do you think that there's ways that, or do you think we're improving in that sense as well?
I took pelters for saying at the start, from day one, that Kyogo has to calm down in front of goal at times and be a bit more clinical, get ice in his veins. And people were having a pop at me saying I was nitpicking. This is the kind of thing I was talking about. That game should have been put to bed after half an hour. Not saying Kyogo was the result, but he missed a sitter and another guy. So I totally agree with Jim on that their finishing could be better. But if you compare and contrast, October was meant to be a black one for Celtic. You didn't know where the away wins were coming from. They've reeled off 3 different ones. I wrote it in the Celtic way. They won ugly against Aberdeen at Pittodrie. I thought they were pretty measured and controlled against St Johnstone. Jim differs. I never ever thought St Johnstone were going to score against Celtic. I thought they were in any danger. And then they've dismantled Hibs in half an hour, which still left you kind of... So there are tweaks. I agree with the whole tweaking part of it, and there are things that can be done to put teams to bed early. But a big part of the other night was Tom Rogic. Tom Rogic that's the best 40 minutes I've seen in Tom Rogic ever, I think. They just couldn't handle him. And Gogic should have been sent off for persistent fouling for 2 yellow cards. He just kept pulling him down. Couldn't handle him. And through that, Celtic created lots of chances. And should have been, if there were 5 or 6 up in half an hour, you couldn't have complained. And I think that's the best half hour we've seen of Celtic under Ange so far. The 20-odd minutes in Betis was similar. That high tempo and attacking, and took chances when they came along, missed some as well. So yeah, but you just kind of, you do worry about the Kyogo out wide thing, but it's coming together nicely. It's all knitting together nicely. They're winning, which was what we wanted, and they're now showing that they can win in different ways. And I think that's all you can ask at this time, as we kind of hurtle towards January and maybe get more players in to help in that kind of sense. But there's a confidence about this team now. There's momentum with them. And I agree, I'd love to see 4-4-2 tomorrow, and I think the conditions are right for it. But history tells us Ange likes his 3 up top, so it's he might not do it, but it'd be interesting. But he's going to have to make these calls if he wants to shoehorn Giakoumakis into the team. But everybody in his ante can see Kyogo's more effective through the middle. End of.
Yeah, I think that's plain as the nose on your face, and I think we all agree with that. John McFarlane on YouTube says Rogic going off stopped her momentum, and there seems to be a bit of an agreement in the comments anyway that we probably did take our foot off the gas a little bit, or things changed enough for us in terms of personnel that we didn't sort of press the game home. Kyogo will be rested tomorrow. Looks as though he was carrying a knock. That's according to Johnny Ryan on YouTube. Need to wait and see as far as that's concerned. It might give Giakoumakis a chance to get a bit of a better run out. But Jim, just to come back to you on what Tony said there, we're top of the form table in the league. We've won 4 out of our last 5. We drew the other one actually. Our possession stats seem to be going up. I think we appear to be calmer during games than we were, a bit less frantic. Do you see things coming together for Ange? Is his style of play getting better implemented?
It's a good question. We're definitely a lot more composed than we were before. We're not as gung-ho as we were. And I think, as I said earlier, maybe that's the plan now, is not to go gung-ho because we were tiring in the second half. So it'll be better in the second half because we're better used to Ange's methods, or we're not taking as much out of ourselves in the first half. I just think we need every player contributing that 7 out of 10 and not to hark back about the invisible right wingers that we play. If you've got one player not contributing very much, then that affects the team. And I thought everyone was contributing in that first 30 minutes the other night. There was an intensity there that Hibs couldn't cope with. Because if Yota's taking people on and beating them, all of a sudden space gets created for someone else. And Johnson's doing the same thing on the other wing. And Rogic, as Tony said, was unplayable there. And Turnbull was making all these great runs. So if you've got all this movement, and that's not even mentioning Kyogo up front. So everyone's all jumping about, doing all different things. Leave the defenders to defend and keep moving about. So I think he's getting there. I think wins help. If you're winning games, that builds a bit of confidence. I said also early in the season, I think the team lacked a bit of mental strength, and that will only come by winning games and be convinced that you can win games. And that's another hard game that we've ticked off. And then when you look at the first quarter of the season, we went to the 4 most difficult grounds that we could have went to: Tynecastle, Ibrox, Pittodrie, Easter Road. So in the second quarter of the season, they're coming to us next time. And then our major rivals are going to have to go to Tynecastle, Easter Road, Pittodrie, Celtic Park. So that's all well and good. And hopefully we can take advantage of that. So certainly things are better. And also in the first quarter of the season, you would like your harder games to come towards the end of that because you're trying to put a team together. So we're within 2 points after the first quarter, having managed to get through all those hard games. There's a better shape to the team. Players that we thought when we signed them were not very sure have been very good. Guys like Joe Hart, he's been unbelievably good. Made 2 really vital saves the other night. Doesn't make those saves. Made the save at 1-0, 2 minutes after the goal. I mean, that was a vital. Hibs score then their heads are up, and it's a completely different first half hour. He makes that save, we get the goal, and all of a sudden, it's our best half hour. So there's always some point of a game where things could have changed, and I think the Hearts save had a big impact in the game the other night. But in terms of the question, I think we're certainly getting there. We've taken on hard games and come through them pretty much unscathed. And I know we've had, as we've said before, lots of possession, but I think we just need to be a bit more clinical, start taking these chances. And once we do start scoring, I think we'll start scoring for fun after that. So I think we're getting there. I think as Andrew would like to say, but we're not there yet, but we're sort of well on the way to getting there. Having a settled team helps. I think Tony Ralston again has been outstanding past 2 games. I thought he was the man of the match. Even though, Roger, if he'd have stayed on the whole game, fair enough, but I thought Ralston was outstanding. Phenomenal header, absolutely brilliant header.
Yeah.
So, settled team, getting there, winning run, scoring goals. It's all good. And long may it continue. But we don't take the foot off the gas. The point I'm trying to make earlier is when you are winning, you need to try and make it better. You don't rest on your laurels. You look at the bits that you could improve to try and keep that going. Because once you rest on your laurels, that's when it will bite you. And Livingston tomorrow could be a tricky game. I don't think it should be. But you never know, it could be if we take our eye off the ball. But we're certainly getting there, Laura. Certainly getting there.
Yeah. Rob Elliott on YouTube says, hi from a very hot Cape Verde. Just remember your sun cream, Rob. I would hate for you to get burnt on your holidays. That just ruins it for you. But anyway, Tony, Jim raises a good point in terms of the fact that our defence is looking more settled. A couple of key positions have been nailed down by players like Joe Hart, like Cameron Carter-Vickers. Basically, echoing what I asked Jim, do you see the team taking shape? Do you see the formations taking shape, the style of play taking shape in the way that we were told so often at the beginning of the season he was trying to achieve, but was difficult to see?
Yeah, I mean, Jim's talking there about players contributing. First 2 goals the other night came from your defenders, who took both goals like complete forwards. I mean, Anthony Nelson's flung himself at that diving header like a centre forward. Knew that if he got contact, he scores. The quickness of mind. And I agree with Jim, Matt. I mean, you cannot do anything other than praise Anthony Nelson. And Cameron Carter-Vickers, I don't know how he managed to squeeze it in the net, but he's kind of jumped up and steered a deft volley, almost as a skipping motion as the ball's coming to him. And he's managed to, and he's angled it. That's what deceived the goalkeeper. I think the goalkeeper thought it was going to come straighter. And he's put it to the corner, and he's been too late to react because he's been so close in. And it's pretty good technique, and you talk about there. So right away, that's like your 7, 8 out of 10 contributors already, without the defensive part. And Cameron Carter-Vickers was excellent the other night. He was terrific. That bit when he went to the corner and he was just like, right, try and get it off me. It's like 3 Hibs players. And one of the Hibs players kicked the ball out and the linesman gave the throw to Hibs. And you're just like, well, there you go. But yeah. And Starfelt, I always think that it's a lot of good things that Starfelt does in a game, but they're overshadowed by daft things.
Yeah.
And cumbersome things. I keep referring to him as cumbersome and gangly, and but it doesn't mask the fact that there's a footballer in there.
Yeah, it actually puts me in mind of something that Alan Morrison said when we had him on, talking about, his statistics actually show that he's a good passer of the ball, that he's successful. But like you say, those moments of calamity kind of overshadow it and stick out like a sore thumb.
And he sliced one right out the park the other night, didn't he? Under no real pressure, and he just utterly sliced it. And people say, well, there you go, and Hibs seem to target him as a potential weak link. But he's actually a very good player, still finding his feet, I think, with the system. And Juranovic, I thought, just kind of came back in, and he doesn't look as if he's been away, Juranovic.
No.
So that's the highest compliment I can pay him. So it's knitting together, as I say nicely. Sorry, Jim. You were going to say something?
No, I was going to say, going back to Carter-Vickers, I thought there was an instant where I thought he didn't have much pace, but there was an instant when Nisbet was almost through and goal, and he just strolled in front of him and dealt with the situation, showing a lot of pace. So he's obviously a bit faster than I thought he was. And as far as Starfelt goes, just people go off his back. He's fine. He's absolutely fine. He's off his back, mates. Off his back.
And I think that's the thing, but because of things like that the other night, they get magnified. Because he actually had a good game the other night.
Yeah.
Again, right, if you're watching it and you're looking at it, if you're taking those moments in isolation, but I think it's like every game, he does a mixture of really good things and some bad things, but the bad things are the ones that get highlighted because people have their opinion of him as being not a very good footballer. But he is a good footballer.
He just looks a bit awkward at times. Awkward at times. And I think, as you said, Tony, that fans make their minds up pretty early on. And people who saw him against Hearts, I thought he's not very good. So they're looking for, as you say, incidents to say, I told you, he's not very good. But he's been really solid, and the two of them have formed a pretty good partnership.
And he's playing in the stingiest defence in the league. Correct me if I'm wrong. Celtic have conceded the least amount of goals in the league so far, haven't they? So,
however, that was a poor goal to lose from a centre-half point of view on Wednesday night. So that's something that can be improved.
Yeah, but I'm quite willing to concede those, Jim, when we're 3 up and we have time to rectify that if we need to. If that's 0-0 and you concede a goal like that, then there'd be a major inquest, So I think, I always thought on Wednesday night that Celtic were always in control of that. And even if Hibs had scored again, I thought Celtic had another gear. I just thought their game management was pretty decent in the second half. Gave Hibs the ball a wee bit and thought, try to do something, but But going back to Joe Hart's save from Joe Newell was terrific. The one he jabbed out the leg. And then I think Russell was talking about it in the aftermath, the Joe Hart of old spreading himself. That was the Manchester
that iconic look,
that kind of save. But I expect Joe Hart to make those saves. Do you know why I expect it? Because he's a bloody good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And we'll find the right good goalkeeper. He didn't become a bad goalkeeper. Just people's perception of Joe Hart, again, going back to Starfelt, people were telling you there was a narrative out there that he'd lost all confidence and he was a terrible goalkeeper. He's not. He's shown you that he's a brilliant goalkeeper. And I was saying yesterday on the Celtic Way that Joe Hart's fallen in love with football again. And he's fallen in love with Celtic. He's got it overnight. And he's thinking, this is a wonderful place to play football. He came up and tried it. He probably took a wage cut, but footballers just want to play, and they want to play where they're loved. And Joe Hart's loved, and the Celtic supporters can see now what he brings and the qualities he brings. And I'm talking about even that experience where he's talking to Ralston and guys like that. It's no coincidence that guys like Ralston are doing a turn, is it? When you've got a guy like Joe Hart behind them, telling you, talking you through things, just seeing things and passing on that knowledge and wisdom. I think Joe Hart will turn out to be arguably Celtic's best signing of the season. He could, obviously people will say Kyogo. I get that, but I'm talking about Joe Hart came to a Celtic at a point where we had a crisis time in terms of our goalkeeping, and he has solved that overnight. And you can't praise him enough. And yeah, I mean, you maybe lose the odd daft goal here and there, but all goalkeepers do. But I'm more than pleased with what Joe Hart has brought to the table so far, both on and off the pitch, and in terms of his goalkeeping and his general wisdom and experience.
I think
the biggest issue we had last year was our defence, and we lost too many goals, to set pieces.
Yeah.
That's not happened as much this season, and that has to be down to Joe Hart, has to be down to Starfelt, Captain Vickers, Ange Postecoglou. They've sorted that, because Celtic traditionally are always going to score goals. So it's getting the back sorted out, and so far so good. It's still early days, but I agree with Tony. I think like Joe Hart's probably will end up being our best signing, because he's actually sorted the defence. If you've got a good, confident goalkeeper behind you, your defence feels that much better. If you've got someone who's a bag of nails behind you, then the whole defence suffers. So Joe Hart's brought a lot to the team. He's not only how well he's played, but his mental strength as well, and all the stuff off the park as well. So he's totally surprised me. You think I was like a lot of people thinking maybe his best days are behind him and he's a bit of a big head and all this kind of stuff. He's been the complete opposite, and he's been great. So again, long may that continue.
Yeah, no, I don't need to make anybody aware of my initial thoughts on Joe Hart. I didn't want him at the club. I thought he was going to be a bad influence. I thought he was going to be a big time Charlie. I thought all the negative things you can think about the guy. But as you both said, I think he has changed people who held the opinion that I did. He's changed their minds. He's reinforced the opinion of those who held the opinion that he's a good goalkeeper. He's only reinforced that. And, I think it's refreshing to see a guy who undoubtedly has earned all the money in football that he's ever going to need to earn actually just come somewhere for the love of playing football. Now, I'm not saying he's on peanuts, he won't be, but he's certainly not going to be getting handsomely paid to play between the sticks for Celtic as he would have been getting paid to be third choice goalkeeper at Tottenham. He could have stayed there, and he chose to come to us, and he's made a massive impact. And to touch on the point that he's made as well about the goalkeeper situation, like we've said, Furuhashi has had a massive impact. He's chipped in with a number of goals. I think he's contributed to increasing the performances of, or the standard of performances of those around him. But at the end of the day, there are other people who can also score goals, and there are other people that can also do what he does. Maybe not as well as him, but they can do it. Joe Hart has kind of proved that there's nobody else at the club that can do what he does. He instantly came in and sorted a position and a situation that was causing us so much hassle. And like we've all said, you can score as many goals if you want. If you're leaking them at the back, you're only going to make things twice as hard for yourself. So, but I'm saying all this, guys. I'm going to have to put my money where my mouth is. And by that, I mean, you might have seen on Twitter this morning that Russell and I I'm going to be starting a new show under the Celtic State of Mind banner, Ange's 11, where we're going back to the Championship Manager game of old, the 20-year-old 2001-2002 game. And we're going to try and better what Ange's done already. We might even try 2 up front, so you don't need to give it a watch. So that will be launching on the 8th of November. So if you're into Championship Manager and a bit of nostalgia, then let us take you down memory lane with a little bit of a laugh in between.
Laura,
so, yes.
I want every one of your formations to be rip-roaring, free-scoring and never boring, okay? That's the only advice I'll give you, okay? 4-4-2, rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring. Call your team what you like.
Well, I'll let you into a wee secret. We actually did a wee rehearsal last night, and I took Jim's words on board, and we went for a 4-1-3-2. And we beat St Johnstone 6-1, and Yakimakis and Furuhashi get 2 goals each. So we must be onto something. But we'll see if we're as successful as we want to be, or if this manager lark is as hard as it seems to be. But yeah, tune in a week on Monday to find out. Jim, I'm going to come to you. Livingston have always proved a problem away from home for us, but we do seem to do all right against them at home. Do you foresee them in particular, sort of aside from what our issues are, do you see them posing any problems for us tomorrow?
I think when they beat us last time at the bottom of the league, I think then since then they've had some half decent results. I think they 4th bottom of the league now, something like that.
Yeah.
And we struggled against them last season for I think 3 of the 4 games. Then we beat them 6-0 in April, I think. So,
yeah.
I mean, on a winning run, home game, 60,000, big park, feel good factor, we should win the game. If we don't win the game, again, we're making it more difficult for ourselves than it has to be. We've dropped 11 points already. We can't keep dropping that amount of points and hoping that our main rival drop points. So we have to keep. If we don't win games like this tomorrow, then you have a question mark as to whether we deserve to win the league. So these games have to be put to bed. I think there's games during a season where you can accept dropping points. And we've been to those 4 grounds that I've said before. And if you drop points in those grounds, it's annoying, disappointing, but maybe understandable. But I mean, if we can't put Livingston's and St Johnstone's and St Mirren's, etc., to the sword at Celtic Park, then something's wrong. Particularly we're in this such a good winning run, such a good vein of form. So if Big Ange plays the right team, he plays 2 wingers who take people on, or he goes for that 4-1-3-2, we should be okay. We've got better players all over the park, and we owe them one after last time. Disappointing to lose at the Tony Macaroni. They shouldn't be allowed to call a stadium Tony Macaroni. I know it's great they put the sponsorship in, but it sounds like a Disney film to me. It's kind of.
I much prefer the spaghetti had, Tony.
Why are you playing this week? It's the Tony Macaroni Stadium. It just sounds like bed knobs and broomsticks.
It'll always be Almond Vale to me. You know what I mean? So I'm old money.
It's fantastic to get sponsorship, but I think stadia should be called sensible names. And just get back to your Championship Manager. You call that nostalgia. I was trying to think, what is Championship Manager? That's nostalgia, is it? Okay. Right. So,
well, I was going to say it's probably not nostalgia for most folk, but the game turned 20 years old this year, so it did make me feel a little bit old. But yeah, nostalgia is all in the eye of the beholder, I suppose.
You're a Tarry equivalent, Jim.
Oh, before that, Tony, well before that. No. Used to be a game of matchstick men. Was that the Spectrum? It was just matchstick men crawling about the screen and stuff like that. Good old days. So all the other old people listening, the good old days.
That was called Football Manager, I think that was called as well, wasn't it, on the Spectrum? Football Manager, I believe.
Possibly, don't know. The sands of time are hazy, Tony. They're hazy. What day is it?
I'll dig out the Super Striker from up there if you want to see that.
Excellent. We could have some live coverage of Super Striker and get some commentary going and everything. That'd be
is that the one where you hit? There was some game you hit their heads.
That's it. And I've got a Celtic team as well.
Yeah, is that allowed in this day and age? Is that allowed in this day and age? You hit guys' heads. I think that's some sort of health and safety thing in there somewhere.
Something like that. If you did that, then the head snapped. But if you pressed it with your finger, it was acceptable. That was a mode of accepted play, I think.
I was a Sabutio man. The flick to kick. That's my era. And all my people tuning in, that's where you are.
Super striker was the big
Anyways, we're off at a bit of a tangent here. So, Laura, bring it back.
We can bring it back, yeah. We can save all the nostalgia for our Monday nights. But Tony, just to expand on what Jim was saying there about Livingston, how much have you seen of them this season, bar, the problems we've had with them? Do you see them coming to Celtic Park and causing any problems for us?
I think every team that comes to Celtic Park will cause you problems. It just depends. You know the way Livingston are going to play. They're going to dig in. They're going to get men behind the ball. They're going to dig in, try and hit you in the counter. And they did it to great effect at the Spaghetti had when they took their one and only chance of the game. And Celtic couldn't break them down. But momentum for Celtic, I agree with Jim. If Celtic can't go and put Livingston to the sword tomorrow, then there's something wrong, isn't there? Or else you put it down to the fact that they're going to be one of your bogey teams. Sir Alex Ferguson's team, Aberdeen team, that brilliant Aberdeen team, couldn't he beat Morton? Andy Ritchie's Morton, Jim will remember.
Yep.
Couldn't beat Andy Ritchie's. We get that sometimes, that some teams just, you cannot, whatever you do, get results against them. But I think Celtic at home should be pretty formidable, and I think you're looking, and whilst you can't write Livingston off, I think it'll be damage limitation for them. Try to play, they'll play in sting 9 men behind the ball, 10 men behind the ball. You know that. So you're going to have to find a way of breaking that down. Whether that be, 2 wingers who can actually take players on to create, or if he tries to shoehorn Giakoumakis into the team, then for whatever reason, they maybe try and, not knock it long, but, get crosses into the box for a guy with height, because Kyogo's not going to win it in the air, is he? So it just depends. It depends the way he thinks about tomorrow's game, but I think Celtic should be able to take care of Livingston at home, as Jim said, in front of a full house crowd. And, there's now, as I say, it's coming along together, but there's momentum, there's confidence there. I hesitate to use words like swagger, but Celtic are getting a wee swagger about them. They're feeling good about themselves. They will miss Rogic big time, because it's a hamstring, isn't it? And that's usually 3 or 4 weeks, isn't it? So, but we still don't know the extent of that. But
it's ironic with the Rogic thing, actually, because when we were struggling a few weeks ago, most people were putting that down to him and Turnbull not being able to work together, and for good reason, because I think they were getting in each other's way. But as the team has improved, they seem to have found a way to work together. So I think he will be missed tomorrow.
Well, also was another fact.
Sorry, that Turnbull had a cracking game on Wednesday night. I thought he was really good. His delivery was good. He was running intelligently, Mr. Sitter, but he was always involved.
Yeah.
Was it not the fact that when we lost to Livingston, neither McGregor nor Kyogo were playing that day? Is that right?
I think that. So
that's an extra dynamic that you bring into the game as well.
Yeah, of course.
Just looking at the comments, Alex Birrell on YouTube, go on, Jim. Deadmau5 calling you a legend, obviously, for going old school with your gaming. Got a few shout outs for the Atari from Belly on YouTube and a couple other folks. So some folk, nostalgia is in the eye of the beholder, as we said, and it's all about context.
Tangents are good, aren't they?
Tangents are good. It's got the chat going anyway. It's got the chat going.
Hashtag tangents are good.
Nostalgia's not what it used to be. Yeah,
it's not. It isn't what it used to be. No.
As we say.
I wanted to bring up, looking at individuals in the team. We've talked about him previously, and Jim, I'll come to you on this. Your thoughts on him are well documented, but Abada has been benched the last couple of games. I think we have all agreed that he can run hot and cold, and that we thought it would be in his best interest to maybe take him out the team for a while. I take it you're quite happy, not only for the team on the park, but for his own development, that he's being given that break at the moment, and that it's been recognised that it's probably needed.
I mean, it's not a vendetta against Abada. He's a good player. No. It's just he hasn't been playing particularly well. So if you're off form, then you have to leave someone out for that. And I said the same thing about Kyogo. That if you play people who are not wingers on the wing, then the chances are they're not going to contribute very much.
Yeah.
And Kyogo did what Abada did. That once Kyogo got the ball last Saturday, he looked for Tony. It's like, where's Tony? It's a variation of where's Wally? Where's Tony? To pass to Tony, and then Tony does something. Because actually, don't underestimate how good a pass that was from Tony Ralston that made the goal last Saturday. It was on the half volley. It wasn't like a simple dragging the ball across. He hit it on the half volley straight to the big chap, and it went. I mean, Abada's part of the squad. I think when James Forrest comes back, for me, in my opinion, James Forrest walks back into the team because he contributes so much to that team going forward and going back, and he's a goal scorer as well. So I think Abada, as everyone has said, is just a young guy. He's coming to the team, he's new to the country, etc., etc. Off to a flying start. He's cooled a little bit just now. We need James Forrest back in that team for the goals he makes, the goals he scores, and his overall contribution to the team. And I think if we get, as I said earlier, 2 out-and-out wingers who take players on, defences won't be able to cope with that. And if you get Kyogo making the kind of runs that he makes, and if with the big guy up front as well, I think that's a devastating team to put together if we could do that. But in terms of Abada, he's just a wee bit off form just now. You give him a wee rest and we'll bring him back in soon, no doubt. But he's got an eye for a goal. You know, maybe playing him inside, maybe he's the natural replacement for Kyogo. Should Kyogo be injured, or you want to do something for the last 20, 30 minutes of the game rather than Yakimakis, because obviously he's a different type of player. It's dead early in his Celtic career, Abada. So as I said, no particular vendetta. I just thought he wasn't contributing very much. And as I said, I think I'm being consistent by saying we played Kyogo there and he did the exact same, didn't contribute very much. So that's an issue. We switched Jota over there and he's outstanding. And you get Mikey Johnson over the other side of the wing, who I thought had a very good game the other night as well. And you keep defences on the back foot, you create space, you create chances, you score goals, and that's the way Ange wants to play football. And that's why I think even if he did revert to 4-1-3-2 or 4-4-2, you can still play the Ange type of football. Lots of possession, and everything that goes with that, with a slight tweak. And I don't think there's any reason why the big chap couldn't do that. But what do I know? I mean, yeah. But Abada will be good for us. But maybe at the moment, maybe there's just better players at this point in time. Players who are on better form. Let's just put it that way.
I think, Tony, to pick up on a couple of things that Jim says there, one of the encouraging things for me about it is obviously I want players to be playing at their best as much as possible, but if he has gone off the boil, Ange has at least shown the awareness to take him out of the firing line, to take him out of the team. Too often in the past, I think we've seen managers persist with players who are not delivering, perhaps because they're a favourite or because they are, have some sort of hold over the manager. I don't think that's something we have to worry about with Ange. The other encouraging point about it is he's a fantastic option to have coming off the bench, even if he isn't playing, which again is something that we've struggled with. What are your thoughts on Abada's recent performances and the way that they've been handled so far?
First of all, I got a fright there when Jim said like Leila Abada keeps looking for Tony, because I'm not on the pitch, I'm in the press box. That's kind of like,
if he wants a greet, he would look for you, Tony.
Let's give him a wave anyway. I'm over here. But no, I think he's handled it well. I think we've all recognised that Abada had a dip in form, and he had to come out the team. He is a great kind of option. And that the one thing now that you can see it coming together is we've got options now. That last week, the last 2 games, we've had strong options coming off the bench, which we haven't had previously. And Abada's going to have to learn that once you raise that bar and you play a certain way or produce a consistent type of performance, if you drop below that, then you'll drop out the side. And I agree with Jim. I think James Forrest naturally walks back into that team. Abada's got a fight on his hands to prove to the manager that he should be starting regularly again at this moment in time. But again, another cracking player to bring on to affect the game if you need it. Because he has got an eye for a goal. He scored a couple of goals, taking them like a real striker, and he's quick. He's got quick reactions, Abada. When a keeper parries something, or he scored a header against I think it was United. Was it United?
Yep.
Yeah.
Recently, yeah. And just he got kind of lightning reactions, and these are all things that you think, great. There's a football brain there. There's something that you can work with. But I think in terms of Ange has played it brilliantly. He's let him go, and and he's had his bright start fizzled out a wee bit it's an optimum time to bring him out and then say to him, look, and he can't argue with it, can he? Because the team are winning. The team are playing well. So, and then you turn in the good management, you say to a player, you want back in this team, then you prove to me what you can contribute when you get your chance. You know, and it's good and it's great that we've got options now to come off the bench like Abada, Giacomakis, you know, Mikey Johnson as well. He started Mikey Johnson on Wednesday night and he didn't do too badly, did he? So it augurs well moving forward. And and it's not, and I agree with Jim, you don't have a downer on Abada, but you can recognise when somebody's off the boil. You know, you recognise it as a fan, the manager has as well, and he's dealt with it accordingly. And I don't think it will do Abada any harm in the long run. And I think James Forrest coming back will actually help Abada in the long run get back in the team, because then he'll know what's needed to get back in the team, and he'll know the kind of bar that he has to keep jumping over and raising his performances to that bar. So I think it's a win-win all round.
I think also the fact we've got these options, we can now legitimately look at Ange to see if he's doing a good or a bad job, you know, because I think it was unfair to judge him when he didn't have those options, when we're bringing on, you know, 19-year-old centre-halves that no one's heard of before, so you couldn't really judge him there. But now he's got options. Well, from a personal point of view, I'm now looking at how he actually deals with those options, and I was encouraged by Wednesday night, the type of team he put out, you know, so that was good. Last Saturday, not so good, you know. So if you win games, you're a good manager. If you don't win games, you're maybe not a good manager. But you certainly got options, good options up top. And again, I agree with Tony. That's it, Tony Haggerty. That's it.
Well, we already knew you agree with Tony Ralston and right. Most of what he does, but yeah, thanks for the clarification, Jim.
I had to think of his name. Tony, pause. Haggerty. That just came to me there. It's an age thing. Tony, pause, Haggerty. That's his name.
Jim, just to go back to Mikey Johnson, I think he did have a good game on Wednesday night, and I think what it proves is, like you've said, the options there, I think, are bringing out the best in some of the players that haven't been first choice or are just coming back from injury. Do you think, Jim, that somebody like Mikey Johnson will thrive in that environment where he's forced maybe to make himself stand out?
I've got this vision of Tony hitting players' heads. Sorry, just get my mind there. I can't get rid of it now. That's it. Spend hours of these. Hours at a time hitting people's heads, just man. Anyway,
and then getting angry when they don't pass it the way they're meant to.
I hit his head really hard. Why didn't he score? Mikey Johnson is an interesting one. I think you said, Laura, last week. I can't remember again. Was that? Did you not say that he's only played something like 40 games, or he was involved in 40 games and something? And Yota's only played 24 games ever. Yeah. Type of thing. And I said something like, well, that sounds a bit like Mikey Johnson. And you should never imagine Mikey Johnson going on loan somewhere and after a few games we say, if you want to buy him at $6.5 million, you know, but he's certainly got the ability, Mikey Johnson. He's shown that in the past. I think he's bulked up a wee bit. I think it's very difficult if you're a player like Mikey Johnson who gets a game here and there and you don't get a run of games. I think if we had 9 or 10 games where he started the game, you see a completely different player. I think his confidence levels would go up. If he played well during those games and he scored goals during those games, then he becomes a vital part of the team, never mind the squad. So I think you can only really assess people after they've had a number of games. And I think if in and out the game and he suffers from injuries as well, I think it's difficult. But I thought it was great the other night. Maybe should have done better, the 1 or 2 chances that we had. But overall, he was good. And I'd certainly like to see him in the team tomorrow because he is a player who plays with his head up. He takes players on. He's not afraid to shoot. He can score goals. And I think if he gets a wee run in the team, I think he could well be a permanent fixture. Yeah.
Red Scotland says on YouTube, Mikey Johnson's confirmed he's been bulking up in the gym. Tony, one of the sort of criticisms I've had of Mikey Johnson is that he is maybe a bit physically fragile to be a professional footballer, perhaps through no fault of his own. You know, some people are just unfortunate in the way that they attain injuries and can't seem to go over them. No doubt that the bulking up in the gym will help him. God knows some of us, myself included, don't need to bulk up any more than we already have. But But Mikey Johnson, I think bulking up will help him out in that regard, and it obviously shows. Oh, echo again. It obviously shows that he is serious about getting his career back on track and doing his best to make himself a regular fixture in the team.
He's always been seen as slight and lightweight, hasn't he? That's been a kind of consistent criticism of him in the past from Celtic supporters, that he's a bit lightweight and slight. But I mean, I think Mikey Johnson, the penny's kind of dropped as well. He has to bulk up, and he's probably looked and thought, I can force my way into this team at the expense of Abada right now, which is what he has done, because Ange's clearly, favouring him now, because a couple of nice wee cameos came on against Ferencvaros, did well, came on against St Johnstone, struck the post and looked very lively, wee live wire, and then he was given the nod to start against Hibs. So it's coming along nicely for Mikey Johnson, but he probably senses or smells an opportunity here that he can be one of those two wingers that Jim talks about, guys that actually take people on. And probably Ange's probably said to him, do you know what, go and show what you can do, go out and express yourself, because he has been willing to take people on, hasn't he? Shown that willingness. The other night, I agree with Jim, there was one in particular where the square ball to Kyogo, I was shouting at the computer screen, Kyogo's got a tap in and he can't even and then Jota has the exact same thing 2 minutes later and lays it in a plate. And these things could be important in the grand scheme of moving forward. So you want to get that right there and then and have that cold, calculated precision in those moments. Ice in the veins that you just square it, it's a tap in. So it becomes second nature. And so these are not criticisms per se, but things that you've observed watching that match that he could sharpen up on. But again, he's just coming back into the team and maybe a bit ring rusty in that sense, so you cut him some slack for that. But, I think I agree with Jim, if he can get his act together, and the manager will trust him and trust players, moving forward and say, right, there's your opportunity, go and prove to me why I should be giving you an opportunity. And Mikey Johnson seems to have grasped that now. And it's also maturity in him that he's taken on the fact that he needs to bulk up. He thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do some extra weight training. I'm not going to be pushed off the ball or an easy touch, when I go out in the park. Because he's got some real trickery there. You see him with the ball at his feet. He has a vast array of what I would call street football skills. And he can beat a man lovely, but sometimes you need a wee bit more than that, don't you? You need to be more streetwise on a football park in terms of that. But there's ability there. He just has to, maybe as Jim says, get a consistent run of games to show that.
Yeah.
I think also, Lauder, that there's going to be times where Jota goes off form or Jota gets injured. So you want to be able to call on somebody who you can depend on to be at that 7 out of 10 every single game. And if you're not playing consistently, I think that's quite a difficult thing to do. But if he gets 9-10 games on the trot, that will build up his confidence, knowing that you can, and then you can count on this guy to bring him on when maybe Jota goes off form or whatever. Nothing that I'll never mention that chance Jota had quite near the end. He has to calm down a wee bit as well. That's a few times, games now, he's just blast the ball over the bar. He's obviously got the technique. He could have actually taken a few more steps onto that one. So again, I'm maybe a wee bit nitpicky again, but I just, these are the things that, as you said, Tony, could be a factor coming into the day.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to, as we're all kind of alluding to here, is having the options is the luxury that we've not had. Having an option for when a Jota or an Abada goes off the boil and being able to say to Mikey Johnson, you come in, and if he makes stakes his claim, then it's up to other people to work hard to get in. We don't really need to look any further than Anthony Ralston at how a bit of hard work and a bit of determination can make you a regular in the team when you're in a position where otherwise everybody was calling for you almost to be out of the club at various points. So it's simple in a lot of ways that hard work pays its dividends if you show the right attitude. And I think that's where Ange is a really good manager, and where I think with previous managers I've always been concerned that there can be players that work hard that will never get in the team because they're not a favourite of the manager. I think Ange is a bit different to that, in that he will he'll give people their opportunity if he feels they deserve it and they work for it, which is great.
I think also, Laura, it's worth mentioning that in terms of the conversations that we're having just now, is that lots of things are really, really good. And what you're looking to do is to be a wee bit better. So if you compare and contrast that to conversations we had 6 months ago, we're saying, this is awful, this is suicidal, this is terrible. Whereas we're actually saying, now, this is all really, really good stuff. And what you're trying to do is incrementally make that a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because all good stuff, and if I appear to be negative, that's not the case. It's really good the way it's going, but just a wee bit better just to make sure we actually win that league, because, as I said all season, I think it's going to be a pretty close league this year, and it could be down to small margins. So tighten up, don't make daft mistakes, don't be sloppy, don't lose silly goals to set pieces, get somebody on the post for corner kicks. All these wee minor things could add up to something big. And the way we're talking now, the way most fans are talking now, is we're right in this league race, whereas even 4 or 5 weeks ago, people saying the league is over. So tighten up in the kind of small things, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, Tony, I think to close things out, that's exactly what I totally agree with Jim. We come on and we analyse every last bit of every Celtic performance. We'd be hypocrites if we moaned when it was bad and then didn't look for improvements even when it was getting better. That's what being a football fan is, isn't it?
You can always improve, can't you? You can always improve. Celtic won 3-1 the other night, could have been 6-1. Make it 6-1 the next time and improve. So that's all we're asking, and we're not asking them to do something that's beyond them, because you're watching with your own eyes and you can see that they're capable now of doing these kind of things. They're capable of being a bit more clinical up front. They're capable of putting men on the post and stopping goals going in at corner kicks. So you're not asking them to do something outwhelm the realms of their possibility. You're now watching a team that you're very happy with as it's progressing, but you can always get better. And
absolutely.
We are now in it. We are now in it.
Sorry, butting again there. But basically, at the start of the season, Ange inherited an absolute shambles. Absolute shambles inherited. And what we're talking about now is some incremental things they could do. So he's actually went from 0 to some very high number in there. And we were just saying, you should make it a wee bit better here, Ange. Compare and contrast that to the start of the season. He's done a remarkable job on his own, no chief executive and all these other kind of backup people he doesn't have. It's a remarkable job, and he deals with the media fantastically well as well.
Oh yeah,
doing a brilliant job. Long may it. I said this a few times. Long may it continue. So yeah, that's the last one.
Is that the new? We move on.
Move
long
on.
May continue.
That's it. Well, I'll take it over death by 1,000 cuts, Jim. I'll take it over that. That's for sure.
Just think of the acronym there. Okay, LMIC. LMIC.
We hope as always that Celtic get better. We hope as always that you enjoy the podcast and it gets better for you. If you haven't done so far, please make sure and like the video and subscribe on YouTube or on any of the other platforms you're watching on. Tony, Jim, thanks very much for another great Friday. Thanks everybody for watching and commenting. We will see you over the weekend for the match coverage as always. See you later.
Cheers, Laura.